Hey, welcome everyone to the Real Investing Show. My name is Stephen Earp, and this is my co-host, Taylor Davis. So welcome, Taylor. How are you, my man?
I'm good, Stephen. How are you doing, sir?
Good. I'm excited about our episode today, and I'm excited that we're getting a little better little by little with each episode.
Absolutely. I am really excited about this particular episode because anybody who is really looking to get started, that's what we're talking about today, is how to really get started in a very easy way, and we're going to dumb this down to super simple.
Awesome. So, how do we get started? So let's just jump right in. First of all, if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or listening on the podcast, watching on YouTube, just put a comment there. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and also post your questions about real estate investing in the comments. We'd love to do our best, however we can, with that. So today we're going to talk about how to get started. So let me ask it this way, and you can just kick it off. Okay, Taylor, I'm just wanting to get started in real estate. I have no experience. How do I get started in real estate?
Go. All right. So I would say the way you get started in real estate, or the easiest way to get started in real estate, is utilizing your own personal residence. So this term is called house hacking. And so what you're doing is you're taking advantage of the housing loans out there that are built with a low down payment and a lower interest rate, and they're designed for a homeowner. So this could be a FHA, VA, conventional loan. And your obligation when you buy that house is to live in that house for 12 months, right? Like when you get a primary residence loan, one of the things that you're saying is, I'm going to be living in this house for the next 12 months. And so by staying in a house for 12 months, but you bought it with the intent of it being a rental property. So how do you hack it to where you're able to take advantage of that type of loan while creating wealth for yourself? You do exactly that. So with an FHA loan, you can actually buy up to a fourplex and only put 3.5% down.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit, just kind of restate what you've just said so that I make sure the new folks understand. So the question is, how would I get started in real estate investing if I have no experience at all?
Right.
And you said the answer is house hacking. That's how you get started, using your primary residence in some way to get started in real estate investing.
Right.
And part of the reason for that is because with your primary residence, this is where you live, and you're supposed to legally live there or commit to living there for at least 6 months, or for at least 12 months.
12 months. Yep.
And you can qualify for an FHA loan that way. And the down payment generally for an FHA loan is
3.5% down.
3.5% down. Okay. Yeah. As opposed to if I were to go and to buy a rental property the conventional way, how much would I end up paying down on that?
20% down. So on average, I mean, average conventional loan or investment loan, they're going to want 20% down. There are different exceptions to that if you've got a really good deal and different things like that. But for the most part, rule of thumb, they're going to want 20% down. Now imagine you get to go in and you buy a fourplex, right? Or a triplex. Let's say buy a triplex for $300,000. You're going to put $10,000 down on that roughly as your down payment. That's 3.5% down. But now you've got two properties that are paying for your mortgage, right? So you've got two units that are paying for your mortgage. You're going to live in one of those units for the next 12 months. After 12 months, you go do it again. Now, you can only have one FHA loan at a time. Okay. So that is a caveat. So you do that with an FHA loan, but you can go get another conventional loan 12 months later. And there are conventional loan products out there that are as little as 3% down. So you could go buy a primary residence that's 3% down. And with those, it's going to be single family with a conventional loan. Sometimes they'll do a duplex, but they won't go up to the triplex or quadplex. So those start to get into different types of loans.
Okay. So for an FHA loan, you can get up to a quad fourplex, correct?
Yeah.
On an FHA loan, but you can only get one FHA loan at a time.
Correct.
I didn't know that. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, you're supposed to only have one FHA loan at a time. There are exceptions to that. Sometimes if you move, you can you do it. But the best thing to do is if you wanted to do it again, is once you have that FHA loan, you can go restructure that debt. It's actually a lot easier to restructure debt than it is to get approved in the first place in most cases.
Now, how do you mean? When you say restructure that debt, what do you mean?
Yeah, so you refinance it into a different type of loan. So instead of keeping it in that FHA loan, after a period of time, you could go refinance that into a conventional loan if you wanted to, more of a bank loan if you've got enough equity in it at that point, because market's gone up. You've also paid your debt down. So when you're able to do that, you could go do that and then go again and use a FHA loan again to get another triplex or quadplex or duplex. But either way, you're getting someone else to pay your mortgage for you. I did this. This is really exciting to me because I did this as a 20-year-old. I had roommates and we were renting a place for I can't even remember, $1,400, $1,500 a month. I can't remember, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And, at the end of that lease, we had nothing to show for it. And I started looking around and I found a house, actually a condo. And I was like, man, why would my roommates are more than willing to pay rent, clearly. So why not have them pay me? And so I went out and I purchased a condo and then we shared the bedrooms and they paid rent. And I ended up actually made a little bit, and they paid less in rent than we were paying at the other place. But I actually ended up making a little bit each month, and it actually helped offset my bills. And so you can house hack with a single family by renting out by the room if you're in that position, but you can also house hack with a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex. You could also just utilizing the mortgage benefit of putting a lower down payment. If you are willing to move every year for the next 10 years, you could just keep doing this over and over and over again, putting a lower down payment, and then going and living in it for 12 months, then 12 months you lease it out and go do it again. And you're hacking the system.
Yeah. So I actually, one thing that I love about the house hacking concept is I've told new investors this a lot of times, and maybe we'll talk about this when we get to the Q&A, but I've had a couple of people come to me who are like, hey, I have $300,000 or $200,000 or $500,000. I don't know anything about real estate, but how do I get involved? And it's like, well, you don't want to go out and just spend all that money if you have zero experience with renters, with the accounting, with construction, and all that. So I think before you start, before you have a lot of property, I think you need some property management experience. I think you need to deal with tenants. I think you need to deal with leases. I think you need to deal with, so I think house hacking, like renting out a room or enclosing your garage where you can rent out, a small space there, something like that. Or the concept of a threeplex or a triplex or a quad, I think is a valuable way to get started, even if it's not just for financial reasons, even if it's for experience reasons, just so you can know how you deal with tenants and things like that.
Absolutely.
And so
there's a learning curve to that too. I mean, just like there is anything, right? There's a learning curve.
Yeah. If it's worth it. Yeah. I heard one time, this was years ago. I remember back in the day. Do you remember Zig Ziglar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when my dad introduced me to him when I was like 13, and I started reading his books and listening to all of his stuff. And I remember him saying, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you learn to do it well. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing poorly until you learn to do it well. And so I think that's part of the deal with house hacking, is like getting some experience with renting to people, and knowing the different types of people and all that kind of stuff. And then over time, when you get a lot of rentals, you can always hire someone to oversee them.
Oh, absolutely.
But in the beginning, you need to really have your hands in the dirt to know what they're doing so that you can manage the managers.
Right. Well, and 100%. And really, there's two types of investors, right? Like, there's the investor that is, a pharmacist full time, works 60 hours a week.
Right.
He does not need to be a property manager, right?
Right.
He just wants to put his money in and get
Right.
a return back. Property management company is perfect for that person, right?
Right.
This is not their income
Right.
that you're doing. The person that we're talking about, house hacking, this person is trying to learn a skill, develop a skill, and build a portfolio while not, and they're willing to trade time for money, right?
Mhm.
They're willing to trade time for money. And this is a great way to do that. There's also some other unique ways that you can house hack. So the whole idea is how, ask yourself this question. If you want a great house hack, just ask yourself the question, how do I not pay my mortgage? That should be your question. And then you figure out how to do that, right? And so that could be you rent out the other side of the duplex, or you have a single family home and you rent out rooms, or you rent out I live in Norman, Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma is the home of the University of Oklahoma. Big football, there's 6 games a year, and the size of our town doubles or triples during those weekends.
Right.
I could probably rent out my house and pay for roughly 4 or 5 months of mortgage if I were to willing to leave on those 6 weekends, right? And rent out my personal property. The rest of the year, I'm still living in this house, but I paid for 4 months of my mortgage just off renting out on those weekends. I can go to a camping trip, stay with a buddy, whatever I need to do for 2 nights. Am I really inconveniencing myself if I'm getting almost half of the year paid for my living expenses? And so just usually the right answer starts with the right question. So ask the question, how do I get my mortgage paid for?
Yeah. Isn't that a good question? Instead of asking, can I afford this, or can I get my mortgage paid by someone else? Asking the question, how can I afford it? Or how can I get this paid for by someone else?
Right.
I think that's a real key to investing in anything, and especially investing in real estate, investing in businesses, entrepreneurial pursuits, and things like that.
Well, and we are definitely in a shifting market. Everyone knows that. It's all over
Right.
the news. This isn't some secret.
Right.
Great investors ask that question constantly, the how question, right?
Yeah.
How do I get ahead in today's market? How do I find a deal in today's market? How do I structure, how do I get creative to structure this? You start asking the right question, it puts your brain to work. This is one of the principles from Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like, you don't say I can't, you say how can I? And because I can't tells your brain to turn off and you're done, the conversation's over. There's no problem solving here.
Mhm.
When you go into how can I, you are telling yourself there's a way, I just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
And that's a very empowering piece.
Yeah, that's good. I love that, man. So house hacking. So let's just review what are the different possible ways someone can use house hacking as a way to get started in real estate?
So step one, you're taking a traditional primary home mortgage. That's going to be because you're going with a lower payment. Step two, you are figuring out a way to offset your payment. So that could be through Airbnb-ing individual rooms, Airbnb-ing your entire house some weekends, and you're out. By the way, that is perfectly legal. So you do have to live there as your primary residence for 12 months, but you could Airbnb it quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if there is a limitation on how much you can Airbnb it. It just still needs to be legally your primary residence for 12 months. Mm-hmm. Then you could, if you bought a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, you get to rent out those other sides. And then when you move, now you think about this. If you bought a duplex, that's a pretty simple thing. There's duplexes everywhere. Mm-hmm. If you bought a duplex once a year for the next 5 years, you've got 10 units. And you did that, and you inconvenienced yourself by moving 5 times. Yet, I think you're going to pay for that or get paid for that a lot on the back end when you got 10 units that are paying you back for those minor inconvenient moves.
Yeah, it's got me excited, man. I'm like thinking about my moving plans for the next 10 years.
You know what my biggest regret was? Like,
Tell
if
me.
I could go back, I sold houses.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I sold my primary residence.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have done that. I have 3 primary residents that I sold before I started keeping them. And I'm disappointed that I let that happen because they would be amazing rentals, and I would probably have added another. I mean, like I'd probably have $300,000 in equity between them all over the course of those 3 different properties, and but I sold them, and yeah, I was able to turn that money into something else, but it didn't create long-term wealth. I wish I would have kept them.
I said this one time. I had a mentor for a while here in Oklahoma City, and he was an older guy that had bazillion properties, and he had a lot of land that he was developing. And he told me one time, he said, Stephen, I never sold a piece of property that I regretted selling later. He was like, that I didn't regret selling. Is that right?
Yeah.
I never sold a piece of property that I didn't regret selling later.
Yeah.
And because every once in a while he'll look back and say, look at the value of the properties you sold.
Sure.
Now, I think back to the days when you and I were buying and selling properties together. We were doing wholesaling, and we were doing a little bit of rehabs, and then we were taking properties subject to properties. And like, can you imagine if we had held all of those properties that we had our hands on back then? Because we were really active. We did quite a few. Like we'd do several a month for quite a while.
Well, because of the price point that a lot of those, especially our wholesale deals, were in.
Yeah.
They're now literally worth 3 times as much because they were in such a low price point. I mean, yeah.
Well, and we had a couple.
It is really hard in the moment. Here's the deal. It is hard in the moment to delay that gratification. You see the paycheck potential 30 days from now, and that is super tangible and super easy. But if you can overcome your internal hardware that says, take that, let's go, and listen to somebody that has regrets. I know you and I both do with that. Don't sell your primary residence. I do think that there are strategic times to sell, and you take a property that's underperforming that you can sell, that you can go get a better performing. That's different because you're just moving it from one place to another. Yeah. But when you sell it and you put that cash in your pocket, it'll never pay you again.
Yeah.
And
you're unplugging it. You're unplugging it from the wall that gives you the power. Like,
yeah.
So,
and this is what I realized. With flipping, you are creating a job.
Yes. You are with flipping. You are creating a job. Now, I will say this. There is like with rehabs, with flipping, with wholesaling, there is value in generating income if that's your number one thing that you need is income.
Sure.
But to be honest, you have more power investing in real estate if you keep your job as long as possible.
100%. Keep your W-2 job. Yeah. Like everyone wants away from the W-2 job, but it gives you the no borrowability, right?
Yep.
Banks love to see a W-2. They do not like to see a self-employed person.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't work out well.
Yeah. So you either have to become very cash rich, or you need a really strong W-2 income in order to keep qualifying for loans and things like that. So if you have a strong W-2 income, you can really do well with real estate investing. And so
when you go in to qualify for a loan, there are really 2 things they're looking at. Mm-hmm. One of them is your credit score, and everybody tends to focus on that. And the other one is your DTI, or debt to income ratio. Mm-hmm. And so they want to see that all of your debt can be serviced with less than a certain percentage of your income, usually less than 50% of your income. So all of any payments, student loans, anything like that, that's debt, they want to see that below the 50% mark. Here's what the beautiful thing about house hacking does. Is you can go in, let's say you bought a duplex, and you're renting out one side for $1,000 a month, and you're paying, $1,400 a month for your payment. Now it's not offsetting your entire mortgage, yet when you move out, it does. They're going to count the lease that you have in place. If you've got a 12-month lease, they're going to count it something 75 to 80% of that rent. They're going to count as income. So you got that lease in place for $1,000 a month. They're now saying you make $800 more a month than you did. And it actually, they can help qualify you to buy that duplex by the renter that's already in there.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. Hey, let's jump into, let's do 6 or 7 minutes of straight Q&A. And then for those of you who are watching, we're going to record another episode right after this. So our plan is to do 6 or 7 minutes of Q&A, and then we will we'll stop. We'll start a brand new episode. So you can, if you're watching live, hang around, and you can watch live again. So some Q&A. How about if I kick it off?
Okay.
So Taylor, why should people watch The Real Investing Show?
Because you should always be learning. You should always be like, your number one job as an investor is to be more educated than the other investors around you. And you should find multiple sources that you like, know, and trust, that you believe in the ethics that they're saying, and that are going to give you sound advice. And I know my heart and your heart are in the same place in helping people. And it's a free tool that you can use to educate yourself and get an advantage. There are other free tools, and that's great. There are a lot of tools out there that cost a lot of money. A lot of people want to, make $10,000 for dispensing, the advice that we're giving freely. And so that would be it.
Good. Love it. All right. You got any questions?
I got you. All right. Especially with the house hack. This is a tough one.
Okay.
How do I get my significant other on board?
How do you get your significant other on board with house hacking? First of all, this is not an investing question. This is a marriage counseling question. So it's a little unfair, but I would say you need to know your spouse, make sure you have a good relationship. Big deal is this: do not do something that your spouse is opposed to. Because I will tell you this, forget about investing, forget about finances. A bad marriage will be the worst financial decision you ever make. Okay.
So true.
So the first thing, if you want to do well in real estate investing, have a good marriage, or else good luck. Okay. So yeah, how to get your spouse on board. I would just bring your spouse, because usually you have someone in a marriage that's really aggressive and like, let's go, 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 go. And one that's a little more conservative and a little more needing of security. And I don't think there's a gender bias one way or the other, honestly.
No, I don't think so either.
So I would just say this: the one that's really excited and aggressive about investing, slowly bring the other person along. And let me tell you something: if you cannot sell and bring along your spouse on your investing journey, then you are not committed enough to it to make it happen. Like, you have got to bring your spouse along. Do not try to do real estate investing without your spouse's support.
100%. You got another one for me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. We've talked about how a lot of real estate investing shows and a lot of gurus are really bombastic and exciting. And our show is kind of like low key, and it's not super duper exciting with sound bites. Why is our show a little more low key?
Okay, so for me, I love to set and manage expectations. I don't want to be the person that is that is telling you a falsehood or giving you false hope. So I would rather go a little deeper, go a little longer, maybe not have that exact beautiful little soundbite that some of these people have a knack for having. I am passionate about this, and every now and then you'll see me get a little bit more impassioned about it.
Yeah.
For the most part, I really subscribe to like the stoicism of like, practical advice doesn't have to be flashy. It just needs to be practical advice. Good.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. I got to give you a question now. All right. How do you screen a good tenant?
Great question. How do you screen a good tenant? First of all, you want a really robust application. I would check all of their references. I would check their credit. I would charge them a $25 to $50 fee to apply, especially in this market right now. You might even consider setting something up as though if you've got someone you're signing a 12-month lease with them, you're really loaning them money for 12 months. So consider it like you're extending them credit for a 12-month period of time. So I call all the references. I looked them up in our state. You use OSCN to see if people have judgments against them. OSCN.net in our state. But I do a credit check and everything else. So that's what I do to screen tenants. I call old landlords. I see why they left their place. I mean, you'll be surprised. People put references on rental applications, and they give bad references all the time. So that's what I would do. Robust. If you get a good tenant, a robust rental application, call every reference, run a credit check, charge them an application fee.
Have you ever driven by a potential tenant's house to see what it looked like?
I have. And I've looked, I always check out their cars too. When I go to meet them, like if they open their car door and it's got trash falling out of it, guess what? I'm not renting to them. Right. Because if they got trash falling out of their car, they're going to have trash falling out of the house too.
Well, so yeah, I've definitely driven by before just to see the outside of, the house that they're currently leasing. How's the lawn? How are they treating it?
Yeah. And the fewer rentals you have, the more active you want to be in doing that. On your very first rental, take an extra week, take an extra 2 weeks, take an extra 3 weeks, run the credit check, drive by their existing home, call their existing landlord. Do not just slam someone into a property because they applied and you have a vacancy.
100%. And if you're not getting quality tenants to apply, lower your price. It's not worth a higher monthly payment or a higher rental rate to have a headache. Trust me.
I agree so much. I learned that from Larry Burkett in the late 90s when I first bought my first rental property. Larry Burkett, I don't know if you know who he is. He was sort of like, okay, so Larry Burkett, everybody knows Dave Ramsey. Larry Burkett was like the Dave Ramsey before Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
And he had a program, I think it was called Money Matters. But anyway, he used to be on like all the faith-based Christian radios and stuff. And anyway, Larry Burkett said, get your rental about 5 to 10% below the market value. And then once you get a good tenant, just leave them in there forever and treat them really well and keep them in there. So that's
another thing. Treat your tenants well. Like, you get what you put out there. And when you take care of the people that are taking care of your property, it's going to work out a lot better for you. I'll also say, I'd like to add one more piece to that. Two things that I look for to make sure on the screening piece that I would want to make sure of is, one, I really want their household income to be roughly 3 times or greater than the rent. So if the rent's $1,000 a month, their household income, I want to be around $3,000 a month or more. And then 2, I want them to have a credit score that's damageable. Not because I want to damage their credit, but I want them to have something that they're concerned about if they don't follow through with their side of the deal. Mm-hmm. So,
great stuff. Well, I think that's all we have for this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, keep watching. We're gonna record another episode just in about 3 minutes from now. So keep watching this page live. And thank you guys so much for watching The Real Investment Show. Taylor, I'll see you in a few.